Hey there and welcome back. This is Gina from McGuire and I'm glad you're here today. So in this video, I am going to try to encourage you to think outside of the rectangle. Most of us make cards that are a basic rectangle or square shape. Well, today I'm challenging you to change that up a bit. It can be so fun to kind of kickstart your creativity with this. And it's a special surprise for the recipient because it's different than what you would buy at Hallmark. So today I'm showing how to use your dies creatively, and I'm using cloud border dies for all these, but you could use whatever border dies you may have. I have lots of tips to share with you along the way. I will also be using a kit in today's video. Now I'm very picky when it comes to kits. I look for two things when picking out a kit. One is that it's a great value, of course, and the other is that most of the products, or all of them, be something that I can use over and over again. Well, today I'm using a new kit from Erin Creative. This is called Shine Bright. Her kits are just so happy, and I think it's something that the world could use right now. And check out this fun bag that the products come in. You can reuse that too. Now, the first thing in this kit is a large 6x8 stamp set. You can see there's some large sentiments in here, which I'll use today. And there is that outline image. I didn't do any of the coloring outline images today, but remember, those are there for a different look. There's also a 4x6 stamp set in the kit, and that's the one here. I'll be using those sentiments also. Here are the dies included. There's the rainbow with the clouds, No Bad Days die with the shadow, and some clouds and sunshines. I'll be using all of these except the No Bad Days today. So there's a lot in here. So many different card styles that you can get out of one kit. And I like these dies because look closely. See those little lines in the clouds and the sun? Those make an impression in your cardstock. There are also 3 stencils in the kit. This one creates a sunshine. You can put little smiley face on it. I'll be using that one. Then there are 2 stencils that line up. So you could do multiple colors of rays, or watch this, you can kind of offset the stencils and get different looks. You could even offset it and just do that bottom part for a small sun. Really fun stencils. I don't use these 2 today, but I definitely will in the future. So all of those products come in the kit, but there are add-ons available too. Here is the A2 Rainbow Rays die and the Slimline Rainbow Rays die. I'll be using both of these today, and they are sold separately. There's also a stamp set that I don't have yet. I can't wait to order it. I really love the messages in it. And this is the Erin Creative Be the Light stamp set. Such a great sentiment set that can be used with the rainbow products or with other things. Along with these things, I will be using the Hero Arts Fancy Cloudy Sky dies. There are 2 fun cloud border dies in the set that I will be using today, but any cloud border dies would work. And by the way, this die set comes with small bird dies, but I can't find those right now. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at this die set. All right, let's get started with our first example. The overall size of this card is 3.5 by 6 1/4. So it'll fit in a mini slimline envelope, but you could do whatever size you want, and I'll have other size versions later in this video. Now for this card, it is not a typical rectangle. You can see the rainbow sticks out the top. Let's get started by doing the rainbow pieces. Off screen, I die cut the rainbow from the Erin Creative Kit many times from white cardstock. And then I inked the different arches different colors. By using white cardstock and inking them, I can save by not having to cut up the more expensive color cardstock, but anything works. So now let's assemble some rainbows. Now, please ignore the piece to the left with the sentiment. I changed my mind, we're not using that. But in this, I show how I assembled the rainbows. So I have a piece of white cardstock, and on top of it, I'm temporarily taping the negative space of the rainbow. That'll just help me to get the rainbow arches lined up nicely. You could skip that negative space if you want. Now I'm putting liquid adhesive on the back of each of the rainbow arches and assembling them together. Now keep in mind, I did basic rainbow colors here, but you could get really creative with the different colors you use in your rainbow just to get a different look. And I will link up here on the top right to a video where I do some creative rainbow combos if you want to check that out. Okay, so once I have some of my arches in there, I can go ahead and add the last one. And now we have our rainbow assembled. Next, I'm going to cut this out. It's It's really easy to cut out because it's a basic arch, especially if you use long scissors like these. I find that helps when cutting out long, smooth edges. Now, if you were just assembling this directly onto a card, you wouldn't have to cut them out. But I want my rainbow to stick up off of the card, so that's why I cut it out. And now I'm gluing on the clouds that are part of the die cut also. And I glued 2 cloud die cuts on each so that they would have a bit of dimension to them. Okay, now that our rainbow is ready, let's get our card ready. I'm starting with a white note card that I made that is 3.5 by 6.25. I want my overall card size to be this, so starting with it is helpful. I'll want my rainbow towards the top, so I'm just holding it there right now. And I'm taking one of my cloud border dies. So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out where to cut that top cloud border. So I'm holding the rainbow there at the top of our note card, and then I'll position the cloud border die so it covers the clouds that will be inside of the card, the clouds that are at the bottom of the rainbow. So I'm just holding the border die there and removing the rainbow. I get a little twisted up in here, but finally I get it released there. And now we have our border die where we want it on the front of our note card. Now before I die cut this, let's check it out, make sure I like the position. I checked it with the rainbow, and now I'm making sure I have enough room for my big sentiment underneath. Since I'm happy with the placement of the cloud die, I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. I'm using my Impress die cut machine today, but you could use whatever die cut machine you may have. So I'll run that through and it cuts through both layers. If it doesn't cut through the first time, just run it through again. So now there is the base of my card. So you can see it has the fold line on the left-hand side, and the top edge is the cloud, which is so much cooler than a basic rectangle. And remember, we'll add our rainbow to it in a bit. Next, I cut 2 pieces of white cardstock that are 3.5 inches wide, so the same width as that cloud border note card we just created. I'm using these pieces to add more layers of clouds along the bottom here, just so it looks a little fluffier. So I'm taking a border die and I'm thinking it would look good right about there. So I'll transfer that over to the single piece of cardstock and I'll run that through my die cut machine. This will just give us more clouds along the bottom. Don't worry, I'll show you how you can stamp that big sentiment on top later. You definitely could skip adding these cloud borders along this if you want to, but I really think it adds to the fun of the card. So I want one more cloud border right about there along the bottom. So I'll bring over my other piece of cardstock that is 3.5 inches wide, and I'll just take this border die and kind of move it over to that cardstock and tape it there and run it through. So now we have layers of fluffy clouds to put along the bottom front of this card. Now, since it's white cardstock on white cardstock, it's kind of hard to see. So you know me, I like to build up those layers. So I want 2 that are cut just like this piece here on the front. What you do is you just line it up on another piece of cardstock, take the die and line it up with the border you've already cut, hold the tape there, or hold it there with tape. So I'm going to put some tape right along that border die, slide out that first piece, and run this through. So now I have 2 pieces that are cut the same. So I can glue these 2 together so that our cloud borders will stand out more. Again, this is one of those steps in the process that you can skip, but I'm a big fan of adding layers. I think it really makes a big impact on the final card. So I'm doing the same with this smaller border, lined it up on another piece of cardstock. Now I'm lining up the die right up against that cut edge. I'll put some tape on the die. Once I have it taped in place, I can remove our small piece that we've already cut, run that through our die cut machine, and again, we have 2 pieces that are the same size. So we can glue those together for dimension, but first we need to do our sentiment. So I really like that large block sentiment that's included in the kit. So I'm using my MISTI stamping tool to stamp this. I do find that having a stamping tool is very helpful with this particular technique that I'm about to do. So I'm starting with our cloud note card. So this is the one that folds open. I'm putting it right into the corner of my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm taking the block stamp and just centering it on there. Once I'm happy with where it is, I'll stamp that with black ink. I'm using Altenew Black Obsidian ink, which is a pigment ink, but it's super dark and crisp. Since it's a pigment ink, I will want to heat set this later so I don't smear it. All right, once I've stamped that on there, we need to stamp it on those other cloud borders that we created. Remember how I'm stacking that up? So now I can take this out and come in with our next cloud border piece. So it's the medium size one. I'll put that in place. I only need to do it on one. Put it right in the corner, and I'll stamp the sentiment again. Now the sentiment will get cut off by the clouds, but that's okay. When we glue it all together, it'll be continuous. Then we have that small little border that's going to be right along the bottom. I'll put that in there and stamp on it. A lot of it will be cut off this time, but it's okay. Now we can glue all of our clouds together on the front of the card. Remember how I said this ink will smear? You want to make sure you heat set it, but I find it gives really dark, nice, crisp results. All right, so let's start building up our layers. This is the solid piece that I'm gluing behind our stamped piece. And now I can glue this onto the bottom of our note card. And notice how the sentiment lines up so it's continuous, even though there's dimension. Here's our solid white border piece. Glue the stamped one on top, then glue this on the bottom of our note card. So now we have this layered cloud background, but our sentiment extends over it all, which is a really cool look, especially in person. It's kind of hard to capture in the photos, but it's definitely worth taking the time to do. All right, now it's time to add our rainbow. I want to make sure it'll fit in our envelope. So here I have a Slimline envelope. I'll link to the ones I like below. And I'm going to glue my rainbow to the inside of the card. So I only need glue at the bottom of it. So right along those clouds seems to do just the right amount. Now I'm using my envelope to make sure I don't put my rainbow too high. So I'm holding the card at the bottom of the envelope, putting my rainbow to the top, and then pressing those clouds down. So now I know that the overall size of my card will fit in that envelope. The overall size again is about 3.5 by 6.25. All right, now to finish off the card, I used one of the sunshine dies in the Erin Lee Shine Bright kit I showed you earlier. And I cut the pieces from white cardstock and inked some pieces yellow and some pieces orange and glued it to the front of the card. I also stamped Just Because on the cloud on the inside of the card, just so that we could extend the scene from the outside to the inside. So here's a look at our final card. I did add some clear gemstones here and there, but you can see how it fit nicely into the envelope and still stands nicely too. But it's a fun, unexpected surprise to have the rainbow sticking out the top. Now at this point, I thought it'd be fun to add a little bit of shimmer to the sun. Sometimes I like to go back and change things once I think I'm done with the card. So I'm using my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen. I use this a lot, and they're finally back in stock. So I thought I'd give everybody the heads up, but it's a nice way to add a little bit of sparkle. So with this first example, I made a mini Slimline card using a border die just to kind of change up the shape. If you don't have a cloud border die, you can kind of freehand a cloud if you want to by tracing little circles all lined up. And by the way, I made a bunch of other clouds. I haven't finished off the cards yet, but a lot of them I did in unique color combinations. I encourage you to try that out. It's really fun to do, and I'll link to a similar video at the top right here. All right, let's do a 5x7 card, this one with cloud border along the top and the bottom. You could use any border dies for this. I know many of you out there do 5x7 cards, so I'm trying to do them more, and boy, am I really liking the change in the size. It's fun to do something different. So I'm starting with a white note card that has a side fold, and it is 5x7 inches. So I'm taking my cloud border die and I'm putting one right up towards the top. I want to get this as close to 5x7 inches as I can. You could use a lace border die, you can use an arch border die, whatever you have. Now once I ran that through my die cut machine, we'll go ahead and do a border along the bottom. Now this time I want to make sure that my border die touches that bottom edge of the card in two places. So you can see it touches the bottom of the card over on the left and there with that little bump towards the right. The reason I'm doing that is I want to make sure this card stands up, so it needs 2 feet to stand on. So here, watch, right there and right there. It touches the bottom of our note card. When I run that through our die cut machine, we now have a cloud border on the top and the bottom, and the card will stand up nicely. It's such a fun change over the cards you get at Hallmark or what we normally make. Now on the front of this card, I'm using the Sunshine Stencil from the Shine Bright kit, and I'm adding yellow ink over it. This is Gina K Wild Dandelion ink and a Gina K blending brush. But you could use absolutely any inks here that you want. You could even use like a glitter glitz gel or glimmer paste, whatever you want, sky's the limit. I just decided to go with a happy yellow. Once I've inked everything with the yellow, I created a little circle mask with a circle die that I'm taping right over the center so that I could apply Pink Fresh Studio Clementine ink right around the edge of the circle, so there's some darker color coming out from the sun. Now, there are many different ways you could ink this. I just thought creating a mask with the circle die was the easiest. Once I've applied all the color I want, I can remove the stencil, and then on the stencil is a little happy face that is super cute. There's also a happy face stamp in one of the stamp sets, which you could use instead if you want. But what I decided to do was use the stencil and use a black pen to fill in the openings. So I'm just tracing in there with a black pen, and there we have a little happy face on our sunshine. Now, just as before, I wanted to add some cloud layers on the front of this. You could totally skip if you want to, but this first one will make it look like the sun is peeking out from a cloud border. So I'm kind of planning out here how I would want it to cut. Then I move it over to another piece of cardstock that is 5 inches wide also, and I tape that down and run it through. This moving from the note card onto another piece of cardstock just helps to get the angle of the border just right. And then I used the cloud border die to cut along the bottom of that too. I actually cut it in 2 pieces just so I could get a different cloud formation. So now I've got this in my MISTI stamping tool. I'm just kind of planning out where my sentiment will go. So I'm just holding the pieces here. I could use an acrylic block in this case, but just to make sure I don't mess it up, I'm using my stamping tool. Once again, I'm using my black pigment ink from Altenew, the Obsidian black, but this time I thought it would be good to clear heat emboss this. The reason I did that is I wanted the shine on there. So I added my clear embossing powder and heat set it. While the powder is still hot on the paper, I'll quickly add some more clear embossing powder and heat set that. And that'll give us a thicker layer of embossing that'll look smoother and stand out even more. If you're looking for other ideas for heat embossing, I'll link up here on the top right to another video that I've done with lots of heat embossing tips. All right, so now I want this to have dimension, of course. So I'm putting adhesive on the back of it and gluing it onto another piece of white cardstock. And then you can see that the edges are sticking out. I just push my scissors right behind the die cut edge and then cut. It doesn't have to be cut right up to the edge. It doesn't have to be at all. This just gives it a bit of dimension that'll help it stand out on the card. So it'll look like a hot mess on the back. Don't worry about it. Nobody will ever see that. You could use foam tape or craft foam here, but I like to use my inexpensive cardstock instead. Usually they're mess up pieces. And also I find that having that even dimension behind it is much better than foam tape when you send it through the mail. So now I'm gluing this onto another layer. So this will have 2 layers of cardstock behind it, so it stands up even more. On my last card example, I only did 1 behind it, and that was fine. But for this one, since this is the only layer I'm putting on the front, I thought I would double it up. If you want to save time and energy, you could totally skip the layers. But watch, when I put this on my white card, because we have the dimension behind there, there's a little bit of a shadow underneath that border, which makes it stand out on this white on white card. All right, next I wanted to add some clouds. Remember I showed you the cloud dies included in the Shine Bright kit? They actually make impressions of like the little fluffiness of the cloud. Check that out. So cool. So I thought I'd glue a few of those on the front of the card too, just to add some more texture. Now I thought it'd be fun to have little pops of red on the card, so I die cut some red hearts using 2 different die sets. I have the Altenew All the Hearts die, which is on the top center, and the Simon Says Stamp Mini Hearts Party die, which is on the top left. These cut hearts that are small and different sizes, and I use them a lot on cards, and I'll use them later again. I just like to have a mix of little hearts I could kind of scatter on the card. And then I use my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen to add shimmer to the hearts and also the rays of our sun. Adding little bits of sparkle here and there really catches the eye nicely. And then finally, I added glossy accents to the hearts also, so they would have a bit of shine and dimension too. All right, so here is a look at the final card. It's about 5 by 7, and it'll still stand up nicely. Now, I didn't do anything special to the inside. I just left it with lots of room to write a personal message, but you definitely could continue the clouds to the inside if you prefer. So with this example, we use border dies along the top and the bottom of the card, but you definitely could use them down the sides also for a different look. Okay, for my next card, I'm going back to the mini Slimline card size, but this time horizontal. This one was my favorite to make, and I hope to make more of them later. Now for this, I'm using that Slimline Rainbow Rays die from Erin Creative that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So this cuts these rainbow pieces that are 8.5 inches long, which works for a Slimline card. However, I know not everybody likes the large Slimline card size, but keep in mind, Slimline card dies can be used on smaller cards. So here I'm assembling a rainbow, just gluing the pieces together, and then I will trim the excess off the edge. This will be a long piece, but I'll just cut it to be shorter to fit my card. I made 2 rainbows and sprayed them both with silver glitter dust, which I've been forgetting to use lately, and check out how cool it is. It just puts like a dust of silver glitter on it. So I'll use it on my next card too. I made 2 rainbows, but I only need 1 for this card. I'll save the other for later. So now I'm cutting this down to be 6.25 inches long, which is the size that I like to use for mini Slimline cards. I have my mini Slimline envelope up there just as a guide for the sizing. I also have a white note card that is 5.5 inches tall by 3.5 inches. So this is what I'll cut my cloud piece from. It's not long enough, but we're going to cut it shorter so it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make sure I had that height right so it would fit in the envelope. So I want my sentiment to be there on the bottom left, and the crease of the card is over on the left too. So I'll place that there and draw kind of a pencil line of where I want my cloud formation to be. I want it to arch up at the top and then drop off. So there's a pencil line there. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll use that as a guide for my clouds. Instead of finding one cloud border die that went in that arch, I'm going to use border dies in little bits and pieces to form the size cloud I want. So I'm starting right up there at the top where my pencil line is, and I'll run that through. So that starts the cloud formation I'm making. I just wanted to show this as a way to kind of use your border dies in whatever works for you. So now I have that cut, but I'm going to take another border die and have it swoop down towards the bottom there, following that pencil line I did. So I did 2 cuts with a cloud border die to make this little mini note card the size and shape I wanted it to be. So now we have this little corner cloud here. You can see the fold is on the left, and we can add our rainbow into it. Again, you want to make sure that the overall size will still fit in your envelope. So I have my envelope here just to use as a guide. I find having that on hand is helpful when getting my shaped card just right to fit in the envelope. I want it to look like my rainbow is coming out from a cloud, so I'm cutting another cloud border formation. This will get glued to the inside, so I'm making sure it's smaller than the little mini note card we've created. So it'll go right there up against the crease, and then we can tuck our rainbow to come out from behind it. But before I glue that in there, I remembered I need to stamp my sentiment on the front while it's nice and smooth. So I stamped my sentiment on that little mini note card. And then I did cut 2 additional small cloud pieces that fit right in the corner that I'm stamping my sentiment onto. I'm doing that same trick that I showed you with my first card, where I stamp the sentiment in the same place on the different pieces. Then we'll glue it back together for a dimensional look, but with our sentiment being continued across it all. So let's glue all of our pieces together on the front, and then we can glue the rainbow to the inside. So I'm lining this up right in the corner, and you can see how the sentiment lines up nicely. If you've never done this before, where you stamp your image or sentiment over multiple layers, I encourage you to try it. It looks really cool in real life. Okay, now we can glue the things to the inside, again, using the envelope as a guide to get our sizing just right. Once I have my rainbow glued there, I can take that other cloud piece that we created for the inside and glue that on top. And then I also have a little sunshine that I created using the sunshine die that's in the Shine Bright kit. And I cut that from a scrap of gold glitter cardstock, and I'll tuck that in place too. So really, I'm just building up different layers on the inside and the outside. Since it's a really simple card design, having all those layers really makes it stand out. All right, let's look at the final result. I have my mini Slimline envelope here, and I'll slide my card out. I did add some gold glitter hearts to the front using those heart dies I showed you earlier. And here you can see how the card opens up. There's plenty of room to write a message over there on the left, and the card will stand up on its own too. I think this is my favorite of all of them because it's such a unique look, and you can change up the sentiment on it. And because this die is large, I could do the same card design, but in a full Slimline size, or 5x7, or A2, whatever size you want. That's one of the advantages of the larger size dies that are more available today. All right, let's do our final card, and this is a traditional card size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but we have the fun shape on the top and on the front. So this is another one that would work with different border dies, but I definitely love it with the clouds. This time I'm using the A2 Rainbow Ray die that I showed you as an add-on earlier in the video. So I'm just gluing my rainbow rays right onto white cardstock, and then we'll cut along that outside edge. Now remember, if you were just gluing this right onto your card, you wouldn't have to cut along the edge, but this way I can use it as an individual piece. Next, I have a traditional 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card with a side fold. That's the piece you see there. I'm holding my rainbow where I think I want it to be, right up to the top corner. And then I'm placing my cloud die so it kind of covers the bottom of the rainbow, and there's plenty of room underneath it for sentiment. Now this time I will open up my card. So this border will just cut basically the front of our card. Once I run that through, I'll open up my card again. This time I will cut the back of my card. So I'll take my cloud die and just kind of match it up there where the crease is, where we cut before, and run this through. And this creates a very simple shaped card that I would encourage anybody to try. You could do like a tree border line or grass like this, so it'd be hills of grass. You could even just do a diagonal lace cut from the front to the back of the card. But look how cool this looks with the cloud formation. Now I can glue my rainbow to the inside of the card so that it reaches up a little past the clouds up there on the top right. And by the way, I did spray my rainbow with that glitter dust again. It really is a great way to spice up solid cardstock. Now it's time to add just more layers of clouds. So I cut this piece to go on the inside, put glue on the back of it. I know it's too tall, but what I'll do is I'll just place it where I want it to be, and then trim the excess off the bottom. And by the way, all the leftover pieces that I cut off or are left over from my cloud border die cutting, I save those so that I can use them to add dimension to other cards. Okay, so now on the front of the card, I'm stamping "You Brighten My Day." So I stamp that right there on the open card, so you can see it's right on the front. And then I have another layer for that front corner that I've cut where I'll stamp the sentiment again. I can now add that piece so we have the layers on the front with the sentiment continuous, and I tucked a little gold sun die cut behind that cloud too. All right, so here is a look at the completed card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it fits in a regular envelope. And I did add some black hearts to it. I just thought that had added some contrast and made the sentiment stand out more. I like that the front of the card is different than the back of the card. It'll still stand up nicely, plenty of room to write your message on the inside, but it really makes a unique card, something very different than the rectangles we normally do. And then finally, I added glossy accents to those hearts so they had some shine to them. All right, there you have it, some fun ways to create shaped cards using border dies. Now, if you don't have border dies, I encourage you to try a smaller card where you have other die cuts hanging off the edge, so you can create unique shapes that way. If you're looking for more shaped card ideas, I will link to a couple videos here at the end that may be helpful to you. If you're interested in the supplies I use, they are linked below in my YouTube description. They're always there. And you can check out my blog for much more information and some card photos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again very soon, and have a wonderful weekend.